Hello, welcome to the lecture series on vehicle dynamics. In this session, let us talk about what are the design requirements for suspension. We will discuss roll centers and roll axis, and also we'll discuss about squat, anti-squat, dive and anti-dive. Probably in the first part of the video, I will cover design requirements of suspension and roll center and roll axis related explanations. In a subsequent video, we will discuss squat, anti-squat, dive and anti-dive. First, let us discuss different types of frames that we use in vehicles. One is called ladder frame. It is like a ladder, so we call this as a ladder frame. These sections, if you look at, they have more depth than the width, so they resist bending. However, they are weak for torsional loads. So whenever you use a ladder frame, they are good for bending, not very good for torsional loads. If you see, if a frame is subjected to loads like this, there will be a twisting moment like this here, and in the front the twisting moment will be like this. So in such cases, these ladder frames are weak. So if you look at another type of frame, what you call it as cruciform frame. You see, it is like letter X, the frame. This is the front portion. This is the rear portion. And these are very good for resisting torsion. But however, you will have a joint here. At the joint, it will be very weak for bending. So now a frame, a combination of this, a ladder frame with cruciform. Cruciform will bring in resistance to torsion advantage, and ladder frame bring in the advantage of resistance to bending. So that way it will resist both bending load as well as torsion load. So we have torsion tube frame also. Here you have a closed box section, and it resists both torsion and bending. And here you have a transverse member which will resist compression and tension due to lateral loads. When there are lateral loads like this, they resist compression as well as tension. So again, the depth that you have provided over here, that resists bending. So this is another type of frame that we use. Most of the modern vehicles will have space frames. So we say it's a 2D frame, only the width and length dimensions are quite considerable and the depth dimension is smaller. If the depth dimension is also considerable like width and length dimensions, then you can call this as a space frame. It is designed in such a way all elements are triangulated so that each member is loaded only with tension and compression. A development of this is what you can call it as integrated structure, where the most of the modern cars will have integrated structure like this, so that they can resist bending, torsion. So becomes somewhat an ideal frame like this. So now the vehicle suspension. So you have the frame now. This part we call it as the suspension part, and here we have the wheel and the tire. So what is suspension then? It refers to the use of front and rear springs. You see here we have the control arm. You can call it as the upper control arm. This you can call it as a lower control arm. In between you have spring and damper like this. So here also you have the same way. Maybe in the rear you have the leaf spring like this. Use a front and rear spring to suspend a vehicle frame, body, engine and powertrain which sits on this frame. Correct? So this is the suspension part. So that way you are suspending the frame. Okay, this is what you call it as some kind of an independent suspension system. What do you mean by independent suspension then? It allows each wheel to move vertically without affecting the opposite wheel. Suppose this wheel is moving, it moves over a bump or whatever it is, then it bounces like this. Okay, bounces and rebounds. You can call it as, you can say, Jones and bounce and kind of motion. This will happen relative to the frame like this. Okay, its movement will not affect the movement of this, or movement of this will not affect the movement of this. So then we call this as an independent suspension system. But here you can see here, if this goes up, so then it will take some kind of an inclined position. If this wheel moves over a bump, then this will take an inclined position. It affects this. These are not moving relative to this. This we call it as solid axle suspension system, right? Or you can say dependent suspension system. So what are the various suspension elements that we use? Yeah, this is what you can call it as an independent suspension system. This we can call it as, like, double arm suspension system. So there is, or double A arm suspension also you can call it. Okay, there is an A arm here, also there is an A arm here. So this is a type of independent suspension. Independent suspension. In between we use springs. You can use coil springs like this. Also here inside that there will be a damper. Fine. So most of the dependent suspension, they use leaf spring suspension. Okay. So now here in these places, when we connect this to the frame in this region, first we'll put a bush and then we connect it. So this will also act as springs and dampers. We can call them as suspension bushes. So now what are the functions of a suspension system? One of the most important thing is it provides vertical compliance. So the wheel can follow the uneven road, isolating the chassis from a roughness in the road. A car can be modeled as a spring mass damper system. So this is sprung mass. Here you can say there is unsprung mass, right? Between the sprung mass and unsprung mass, your suspension. Okay. Now, what exactly this suspension does? So suppose if you have a road profile like this, it will maintain vertical compliance. What it means is when it is on the ridge of a road like this, you see here the springs compress, correct? And the road and the wheel will be in contact with the road surface. And the vehicle is moving with a certain speed. When it comes to the trough region, so again these will expand and push the wheel to be in contact with the ground. But one thing you remember that there is something like what we call it as a response time. A vehicle is moving with 100 kilometers per hour. To move from here to here, it is going to take certain time. Correct? We can measure. If we know this wavelength, we can measure what is the time it is going to take. Within that time, so first here it is in the compressed mode. So within this time, it should be able to come back, means it should expand and see that the wheel is in contact with the ground. Again, as it starts climbing, it should start compressing the spring like this. Suppose if the vehicle speed is very high and it is not, the spring damper system is not going to respond to this requirement, then wheel will not be able to come back, right, and in touch with the ground. So in such a situation, probably if it is not responding, it is better to design a system which can respond. But if it is not able to respond, then it is necessary to reduce the speed of the vehicle. So thus, one of the main functions of the suspension system is to provide vertical compliance so the wheels can follow the uneven road. If at all, if the vehicle speed is very high, probably then there is, these wheels will start flying like this. So then the driver will lose the steering control. So then the vehicle will be in somewhat unstable condition. So you'll get the wedge effect and the vehicle will be in the unstable condition. Right. Second thing is, you see here, if you see this, here you have the stub axle, then you have the knuckle and all this. This is connected to this, the frame, through upper control arm and lower control arm. When the vehicle is running, correct, because of the load transfers and all that, okay, if it is going this way, then there is going to be load like transferring like this. Because of the compression effect and all that, the wheel might tilt outwards. Because of that, wheel alignment angle change, like camber might change. So it is necessary that these arms should be able to pull this wheel in the opposite direction and try to maintain this camber angle. Okay, so that's what we say. You should be able to maintain the wheels in the proper steer and camber attitudes to the road surfaces. So here you can see in this diagram, the wheel is trying to move outwards because of the load transfers whenever we are taking a turn. But whether these linkages will be able to pull this backwards and maintain the required camber. Even then, there will be a small change in the camber, but it should not exceed the limit. Also, what happens is whenever taking a turn, the vehicle rolls. So again, your suspension system should be such that it should be able to maintain the limited roll angles. So if it is not going to resist, then there is going to be too much of a roll. That's what happens. So it is the duty, or it is the responsibility, or you can say the suspension systems have to be designed in such a way it should be able to maintain the roll angle within the specified limits. Another very important thing is that whenever vehicle accelerates, the load will be transferring from the front to the rear, and because of that the suspension expands and the other side suspension compresses. Okay, this we call it as the squat effect. And you should design the suspension in such a way you should be able to create an anti-squat effect. Anti-squat effect. The same way, when we are braking, the load gets transferred from the rear to the front. This we call it as dive phenomena. Again, I should design my suspension in such a way it should be able to create anti-dive phenomena, and so that the vehicle remains somewhat horizontal like this. Here also the same way. That's what the anti-squat system has to do, and this is what anti-dive system has to do this. Okay, as I mentioned, whenever you are taking a turn, there will be centrifugal force. That's one part of it, and because of that, again the load will move from, load transfer happens from inner side to outer side. Then the suspension system should be able to resist this and creating some kind of an anti-roll effect. So this is how the suspension has to be designed. So the suspension system should maintain, vertical compliance. For uneven roads, you should be able to maintain the required camber and roll angles. You should create an anti-squat effect, anti-dive effect, as well as anti-roll effect. These are all very important while design. These are all the things that we must take into consideration while designing suspension system. Okay, let us talk about, say, roll center and roll axis. I'll talk about these definitions. First, let me explain what exactly a roll center means. Suppose this is the upper control arm, this is the lower control arm of the left suspension. These are the upper and lower control arm of the right suspension. If I just produce these two lines, they meet at one point. Again, if I produce these two, again they meet at one point. This point I connect it to the center point of the center line of the wheel where it meets the ground. And the same way, if I do this, these two intersect at one point. This we call it as a roll center. So about this roll center, the vehicle rolls. You see, if there is roll center over here, if there is center of gravity over here, so then this you can call it as, it will give you a kind of a roll moment. So if the center of gravity height is too high, then the roll moment is also high. Correct. If by chance center of gravity is the below roll center, then it will not roll. We call it as the banking kind of thing like that. So if it is a race car and all that, so Formula car, normally center of gravity will be below the roll center. So what do you mean by a roll center, right? What we mean by roll center? What exactly the physical meaning of that? So in a suspension, whenever you have a suspension, there will be a roll center. Roll center is a point at which the lateral forces are transferred from the axle to the sprung mass. Axle to the sprung mass. So let us say these are wheels. This is axle. Your lateral forces will be acting here. Correct. Then you have the sprung mass here. Then you have the suspension here. These forces, they get transferred to the axle to the sprung mass. So how it gets transferred? Roll center is a point at which the lateral forces are transferred from the axle to the sprung mass. So once you have the suspension, you can expect the roll center here. Correct. And some of these forces, they get transferred to the, this will be centrifugal force, equal and opposite to the centrifugal force, it will be here. So this point, we call it as a roll center, is a point at which the lateral forces are transferred. I will explain the mechanism. The roll center is a point in the body at which a lateral force application will produce no roll angle. Correct? If you apply a force here, this will not roll angle. It will just make the vehicle slide. That's all the thing. It is the point around which the axle rolls when subjected to a pure roll moment. Around which the axle rolls when subjected to a pure roll moment. About this point, this axle rolls. Okay. Now, roll axis. You have front suspension. There will be a roll center. Then you have rear suspension. For that also there will be a roll center. If you join these 2 points, you will get the roll axis. Roll axis. It is a line connecting the roll centers of the front and the rear suspension. In the median plane of the car, correct? You create a median plane. Suppose you have the car. Correct? You introduce a median plane. Cut through this median plane, right? In the median plane of the car, a transverse plane, median plane of the car, a transverse plane in which the horizontal lateral forces applied to the rolling mass of the car will move the car sideways without causing it to rolls. So about this plane, you see a transverse. This is the median plane and this is the transverse plane. In the median plane of the car, a transverse plane with which horizontal lateral forces, you apply the lateral forces here. Okay. Lateral forces applied to the rolling mass of the car will move the car sideways without causing it to roll, right? Okay, I'm just talking about 2 planes over here. One is the transverse plane, median plane of the car. Other one, you can say transverse plane of the car. Like this. Okay, in this pole you put a side force like this. Applied to the rolling mass of the car will move the car simply sideways. It will make it right like this, slide like this. Will move the car sideways without causing it to roll. It follows that the forces applied above the roll axis at the center of gravity will cause roll. Also that forces, if any, applied below the roll axis will cause banking. For example, if you take a ladle, okay, right, assume this is the rod of the ladle and it is right. So instead of that, I will put it this way. So there is a rod like this. Okay, you swing about this point and all that. Suppose here you have a child or whatever it is, weight is there. So it can only swing like this. It will not roll over. Here the roll center is here. The center of gravity is here. Okay, right. Okay, fine. This is what I was talking about, vehicle roll axis. Now earlier I was talking about how exactly the lateral load transfer happens, the mechanism. Actually, the lateral load transfer happens. There are three parts in this: sprung mass, rolling mass transfer. Sprung mass, due to rolling, mass transfer happens. Sprung mass, non-rolling load transfer happens. And another one is unsprung mass load transfer. Let me not bother about this. Now let me consider these two now. Sprung mass, non-rolling load transfer. You see here, if there is a centrifugal force, whenever vehicle is taking a turn or it's cornering, this is the centrifugal force. Correct. Now to oppose the centrifugal force, you will have reaction forces, what you can call them as grip forces. Okay, you have grip forces here. So the grip forces, sum of grip forces will be equal to centrifugal forces. Let me transfer this grip forces like this, right? So join this point with this point, join this point with this point. Correct. Now, if I can transfer this load along this load along this line, then sum of these, vectorial sum of this will be this force. Okay, this force is is equal and opposite to this centrifugal force. This is not causing any rolling effect. This is nothing but sum of these two forces. This is what we call it as non-rolling load transfer, centrifugal force. Okay, fine. Basically what you can do is, what I'm trying to say is, this force and this force, you add it and draw this, but one of them, then if you resolve this force along this line, you will get one of these forces. When you resolve this force along this line, you will get the other force. Okay, so that way we can get this force. Here it is not causing rolling, so that's what we said. It is the axial forces get transferred to the sprung mass, that is through this center. That's why we call this as, that center is known as the rolling center. This we call it as non-rolling load transfer. Another one is, this is on suspension. So what is really going to happen, you see here, initially the center of gravity was here. And now the question is, when the load moves to the outer side, inner to outer side, one side spring expands, other side spring compresses and all that. Basically, this side weight is more, this side weight is less. The center of gravity will move from here to the new, this is the new center of gravity. Through this new center of gravity, the vehicle weight is acting like this. Okay, and this is what we call it as the roll angle. Earlier the roll angle was 0. Now this is what exactly the roll angle. Now you can write, if you can draw this as a triangle, sin phi is equal to this value is d. This is height of center of gravity. This is height of rolling center. So this height will become h minus hrc. Sin phi can be written as d by h minus hrc. Okay, for small changes we can write like this. So d is equal to h minus hrc sin phi, and this w into d is what the rolling moment is. W into d is the rolling moment. Okay. So what is the load on the outer wheel? Load on the inner wheel. So we can find from these equations. So that's what exactly here. Earlier classes also we are talking about what is the lateral load transfer, total lateral load transfer. And here there is a lateral acceleration. This we have discussed in earlier chapter. Okay, fine, sir. So please understand there are two types of load transfer. One is rolling load transfer, another one is non-rolling load transfer. Now, this is a rolling load transfer. What is the resistance offered to this? Okay, I think the sketch has been reversed over here. Okay, so you get about this point, correct? Now if I can measure the value of D, correct, 1 minute. So because of this W, about this roll center, it will be having a roll moment like this. So now immediately what is going to happen? This springs, one side spring expands, another side spring compresses. This will create a resist moment. Correct. Let us calculate what is that resist moment. Okay, for that, okay, I think between the springs the distance is S. So lateral separation distance between the springs. Let us say linear stiffness of the suspension is Ks, vertical spring rate. This is Newton per meter or Newton per millimeter, whatever it is. Here I'll bring in K phi, the roll stiffness of the suspension. Okay, right. So let us find out the roll stiffness. After that, let us find out what is the roll angle value. So now the thing is, let us consider this is S by 2, center point. So now this is your spring. Okay. Now let us say this spring gets compressed now. This spring gets compressed. Okay. Now this length is this one. So how much it gets compressed? Suppose this angle is phi. This compressed by S by 2 times phi. Correct? So now Ks into S by 2 times 5 is the spring force. Correct now? Spring constant into displacement. And this force will take a moment about this point, that is S by 2. So this spring will be pushing this way and the other spring will be pulling this way. So then we can add these two. So this will become half Ks S square phi, and this part you call it as K phi. This is what you can call it as roll stiffness. This is linear suspension, linear stiffness. This is what you can call it as roll stiffness of the suspension. Okay. So now I can do it for the rear as well as for the, this is for the rear part of the car, this is front part of the car. So you can say, okay, I'm sorry. Okay, I think I'm sorry. It is the total stiffness, fine. Sometimes I might even connect a bar here, what you call it as an anti-roll bar. And let us assume that bar has a stiffness Kr. So that stiffness and to the roll stiffness. Okay, this part is K phi 5 and Kr phi. So finally I can write K phi plus Kr. Please, this is the total stiff. Right, I'm not talking about rear and front. I'm sorry for that. Okay, just for the time. Right. So now this is what exactly resists. So that means the rolling load transfer can be is equal to this. So what is the rolling load transfer? This rolling moment, whatever it causes, okay, this value is same as this value. Okay, because it's a resistance, right? Fine, it resists that. So keep this in mind. Now yeah, so once we know now let us see here. There are two parts, as I said. One is non-rolling load transfer, and another one is rolling load transfer. Rolling load transfer. So, and it is written over here. So Fy is the load. So for example, Fyi, Fy naught. Correct. About the, you just take this load. Fyi, that is HR, and Fy not HR. Correct. This is FYHR. Same as writing this into this side, I can write this way. Right, fine. FYHR. And the rolling load, it is K5 into 5. That we have proved in the previous section. That is K5 into 5. Correct. Now this is the load transfer. Now because of this load transfer, the load on these vertical reactions will be this. The moment of the vertical reactions you can take like, so you can consider this is T by 2 part of it. F Z naught T by 2 and fzi t by 2. So if I can reorganize and write, I will get fz0 minus fzi is equal to this. And this is rolling load transfer. Correct now? Lateral load transfer due to vehicle roll. And this lateral load transfer due to cornering force. Cornering force means that is centrifugal force which are coming over here. Then I can say that is load is equivalent to this equivalent to this way, and that is equivalent to centrifugal force. So I can write like this. Is that okay? So I have got these two loads. Right. Now what is that not known to me is roll angle. So there are roll angle. There are two parts over here. You see here, this is the front rolling stiffness and rear rolling stiffness. This will give you this moment, and because of this change in center of gravity, this will give you other moment. If there is a difference in these, then only roll can happen. So if they are exactly equal, I think the roll will not happen. So this is the one part of it. Okay, and this one is WV squared by RG, that is the centrifugal force. Correct, and is a moment due to centrifugal force, that is H1, that is from the roll center, right? That is what I written over here. Correct, that's a point H1. So now these two forces, correct, they form a kind of triangle, right? That because of that you will be getting the phi. Okay, one is acting in the vertical right plane, another one is horizontal plane, so you will get this tan phi. So that's how I can write this roll angle. Probably from this angle, this triangle, we can reduce this. You see here, this is the centrifugal force part of it. This is this centrifugal force about H1, it create this moment, right? And the other one is this W, correct, into H1 is this part of it. And from here roll stiffness and this roll stiffness, they will create this anti-clockwise. Okay, this I can write in the triangular form, and I can say I can deduce the roll angle value. Okay, so you want to see from this diagram, probably you can do this. Okay, this one, correct, and this one, create this, this way, and okay, and create this one. This angle you get phi. Okay, this part you write as the center, that is non-rolling. Then other one, you vertical line, actually it should be vertical line. This is the vertical line. This is the one rolling transfer, right? Right, because of that you are going to get this angle. That angle I'm calling it as roll angle. One is rolling load, another one is non-rolling non-rolling. Rolling resistance actually. In that you have to subtract the rolling moment. So you'll get this. Then you'll get this phi. That is what the roll angle is. Okay, at the center of gravity point, it is shown over here. Okay, you get the roll. Then the rolling happens because of the lateral acceleration. If I differentiate with lateral acceleration, we call it as roll rate. And to avoid rollover, the maximum roll rate should be well within 3 to 7 degrees per G on typical passenger cars. So we have got the roll angle value, you have got the roll rate value, and you know how to find roll stiffness. Fine. All other values are known. Now let us find out what is the roll moment on the front of the car. If you consider the car has two parts, correct? This is the front side of the car, this is the rear side of the car. This load let me call WF, this load let me call it as WR. So in the front, again you have front suspension, so front rolling stiffness, it is front rolling stiffness, we can find out from the front, from the suspension, and this value is the roll angle. Okay, this is the load transfer due to lateral load transfer due to rolling, and its centrifugal force is this part, right? This must be equal to the load difference into TF, the track width in the front. Okay, the same way roll moment on the rear, instead of K phi F you take K phi R, multiply this with phi, that is roll angle, and the rear centrifugal force. This must be equal to this. So you resist roll moment in the front, increase TF value. That's why many of the vehicles will have larger track width. The cars will have larger track width in the front, and here you will have lower track width. Right. Now also there will be more load on the front. Okay, so we bias the roll moment to be towards the front so that we can make the car understeer. That's the idea here. So this is the roll moment distribution in the front and roll moment in the distribution in the rear. In general, the roll moment distribution on vehicles tends to be biased toward the front wheels due to a number of factors. Relative to load, the front spring rate is usually slightly lower than that at the rear. So we want more comfort, we want flat ride, and natural frequency of the front side should be less than or equal to 1, that is Fn. That's why I try to use a softer spring, because it is K by M, right? Suspension, front mass, and 1 by 2 pi. So to keep this frequency low, we try to make this as soft. However, the independent process used on virtually all cars enhance front roll stiffness because of the effectively greater spread on the front suspension spring. So that will definitely try to increase the roll. To reduce that roll, what you can do is higher front roll stiffness. How do we ensure? To ensure understeer, see that the front track width is higher than the rear track width. That's one part. Second thing is we use stabilizer bars here to increase the stiffness. right? So are often used on the front axle to obtain higher front roll stiffness. Correct, higher roll stiffness, then what is going to happen? The roll moment will be high. So we can reduce the rolling in the front. That is the main thing. If stabilizer bars are needed to reduce body lean, they may be installed on the front or the front and rear. Caution should be used when adding a stabilizer bar only to the rear because it may make the vehicle oversteer. That's also a problem. How exactly oversteer happens is that this part value increases centrifugal force. Then the vehicle, what happens is when it is taking a turn, if this centrifugal force is higher than this centrifugal force, then this fellow will, about the center of gravity, will yaw the vehicle. So that is the reason. So you don't make too much of roll stiffness over here. Okay. Right. Oversteer effect. So then how do we find roll centers? Is that okay? Right. Remember, that is the reason. These are all the main reason why so we want to have more roll stiffness over here and compared to this point so that the vehicle understeers, and that's why the roll center from the ground is lower here, roll center from the ground is little higher over here. Is that okay? And there is more front load here, less load here, so the vehicle will understeer. But you are using, for comfort's sake, soft springs here. That's why you need to add anti-roll bar in the front. Also, you increase the length of the track width. Track width you increase compared to rear. So there should be more roll moment distribution in the front compared to the rear. Right, sir. So how do we find roll center? Basically, I think a very clear procedure is given in many of the textbooks. And this is from Gillespie. And for various types of suspension system, how to find the roll center position, that has been explained. Probably even if I'm going to explain, I read line by line and how to find the roll center. That's what exactly I'm going to explain. Using these procedures for different types of different architecture of suspension, you can locate the roll center at the rear as well as in the front. Then you can join those points and get the roll axis. Okay. You can also observe here, there are vehicles having roll center below the ground line, above the ground line, and on the ground line. So what really happens is how to find the roll center. Please, you can do it yourself. That's why I'm not explaining. Otherwise, I have to read line by line and establish the procedure. That's all the thing. You see here, if the roll center is here, if you just join this point, you can consider this as something like lever, imaginary levers. If we apply lateral load like this, correct? Okay. Now, if one lateral load is more than the other one, whatever is net lateral load is, what is going to happen? It tries to lift this up. So what you call it as, you will get a jocking effect. Okay. It will try to lift this way. Okay. Sprung mass. If it is below the ground line, probably it will try to push it down. It is exactly on the ground line, it will try to slide. That's the kind of thing. this what happens. So we need to carefully place the roll center so that the jacking effect or pushing down effect can be carefully managed. Right. Okay. This is in summary, what I would like to say is it is necessary to locate roll centers in the front as well as in the rear, so that if it is in a car, we should get more roll distribution on the front, roll moment distribution compared to a rear. So we should design our suspension in such a way roll rate should be well within 3 to 7 degrees. Okay, that's a very important thing. So now if it is rolling too much, so how to increase the roll stiffness? Probably by using the anti-roll bar or varying the track width length. It is possible to do these things. Okay, and right, and if the center of gravity is too much above the roll center, then there is going to be too much of a roll moment. Okay, so these are some of the things we must clearly understand. Thank you with this, and we will continue the squat, anti-squat, dive, and anti-dive in the next session, next video. Okay, let me stop at this point.